Welcome to Growing Up in Easton. Your host is Priscilla Almquist-Olson. It gives me great pleasure today to welcome two Eastonites who grew up here and will share their childhood stories, their memories, and their sibling rivalries.
Yeah, we had some of those.
This is Tom Sharpe, who graduated Oliver Ames High School in 1978, and since 1981 he's lived in North Carolina. And here is his sister Joanne, who he affectionately calls as Joey, Sharpe Sheehan, and she has lived in Easton her whole life. And so we welcome both of you to share your stories. And maybe you can start by telling us what's the earliest memory that you have of Easton?
Mine would probably start in kindergarten at Parkview School, and it's still in operation to this day as far as I know. Matter of fact, it's been about 4 years ago when I came home in the wintertime. We went by there and there was a little tiny bench right outside the principal's office that when you got in trouble, you had to sit on that bench and wait to see the principal. And that bench is still there. It was there when I was at Parkview School.
And did you ever warm that bench?
No.
No, of course not.
Never got in trouble.
And Joanne, did you go to Parkview?
Yes, I did, but I don't remember the bench, so
I
I must
do.
have been.
Yeah.
I should have gotten in trouble more because I regret not having those kinds of memories. I wish I had been a little more daring and stepped outside the lines now and then, but I didn't.
Yeah.
So what's your earliest memory?
My earliest memory is I went to the big yellow school in the center next to the rockery, and I went to kindergarten in the basement, and I remember the little 3-cent milks that we got in a carton, and my biggest challenge was trying to drink the whole thing, and I always had trouble drinking the whole thing. And the teacher used to come around and make sure you drank the whole thing. So it was always a chore. But I remember the school and then eventually going back there later.
Yeah. Okay. So didn't you have saltine crackers or graham crackers with that?
I think we did have some kind of cracker, but the milk was the challenge.
The milk was the challenge.
It was the graham crackers.
Was it graham crackers?
Yep, I remember those.
Yeah. So do I.
You didn't like them?
Oh, I loved them.
Oh, you loved them?
Yes. Yeah, that was our morning break. And so did you walk home for lunch, or did you have lunch at Parkview?
Our dad was a bus driver.
Oh.
So we pretty much got free rides.
Oh, no, I took the bus. That was before our dad was a bus driver, and I remember Pete, we used to call him Putt-Putt, was our bus driver. And I remember the first day of kindergarten, I cried I didn't want to get on the bus, and Pete had this soft hat that he wore and coaxed us in, and my cousin Nancy Sue next door. Of course, we grew up with 12 of us on one side of the driveway. 6 of us on one side and 6 on the other side, the Suba family. And Nancy went to school with me, and
We all had matching cousins.
we all had matching cousins.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
My Uncle John and Aunt Eleanor Suber had 6 children, Jean, Ted, Nancy, Linda, Billy, and Carol. And we had Ken Sharpe.
And he graduated in
68.
68.
And my sister in 69. That was Kathy. She's passed away now. She lived in Oklahoma and became ill. And the rest of us, there's still 11 of us left. Some of us are scattered all over, but those memories, we kept each other going,
Sure.
as families.
Yeah. So there must have been times that you remember where you had your happiest moment.
All the time, especially in the summertime, our cousins and us were always outside, always playing. Annette and I just walked down the driveway the other day and looked at the little patch of grass that we used to have baseball games in. And it's not much bigger than this stage. Couldn't believe that we managed to play baseball on this little patch of grass. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of good times together. We kind of stayed right around the house most of our childhood. So we were very creative on coming up with things to have fun with. And I remember one particular year, my dad had made of all of us stilts. And we all learned how to walk on stilts, and it seems like it was like the next year he made all of us little wooden toy guns that shot rubber bands. And we were always coming up with some creative things to have fun doing. Mm-hmm. Never had between the 12 of us, we never had 12 bicycles that worked. So we would ride the bicycles that did work, and the ones who weren't on bicycles would play traffic cops. And if they stopped you on your bicycle for breaking the law, they got to ride your bicycle. So it was a constant.
You became the cop.
Yeah, exactly.
We had one spot on our long driveway that had this big oval rock, and we called it the Dog and Suds because it was such a treat when we got to go to the Dog and Suds and park there and get our root beer and our hot dog. So on our bicycle runs, we'd stop at that Dog and Suds and pretend to buy a hot dog and a root beer. Fun times, very fun times.
Yeah. So you must have had some friends from school too that you played around with.
I had a couple of close friends. When I got into late junior high and high school, I worked full time while going to school, so didn't have a lot of time to spend with friends. But I had a couple of close ones that I still stay in contact with to this day.
Who were they?
Kevin Varney is, I can't remember where he moved to, but he's still here in Massachusetts. And a gentleman named Scott Hill, who had joined the Air Force right after high school, and he got in a bad car accident. And he's been paralyzed in a wheelchair ever since.
Scott Hill.
Yes.
Is he Dennis Hill's and Wayne Hill's brother?
I believe he's related to Wayne. I don't know if they're brothers. He's not lived in Massachusetts since within 2 years after high school. He moved.
So maybe they were
west.
cousins.
Could have been, yeah.
Wow, that's great that you've kept that contact.
Yeah, he's
So-
done very well for himself for being in a wheelchair and completely paraplegic. He can't do anything from his neck down. He's
Oh
paralyzed.
my goodness, wow.
But he's run his own business ever since high school, restoring old cars and muscle cars, and he has a huge garage out in the Midwest, and he still does that through all of his employees. He buys his own cars. He buys these fancy, fast hot rod Mustangs and stuff, and has them modified to where he can sit in the passenger side while somebody else drives it. And that's how he's managed to compensate for his lack of mobility.
Terrific. Wow, what a story.
Even been hang gliding in his wheelchair.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. What an inspiration.
Yeah.
And that's a OA grad.
Yep.
Yep, and a good friend of yours. That's wonderful. Joanne, how about you? Do you keep in contact with any of your old buddies?
I've recently discovered Elaine Sears, and what a hoot she is.
Was she in your class?
Yes, she was in my class.
Well, she's my cousin.
Oh, she's your cousin.
Elaine Anderson Sears.
Elaine Anderson Sears, and I happen to give her mandolin lessons.
You're the one.
I'm the one.
Okay.
And she is doing excellent for an adult that's just starting to learn an instrument. She has learned to read music. She's getting the melodies and the rhythms down good, and she's totally enjoying it. And she's just a great person. I'm so glad. I forget how I finally made contact with someone,
Uh-huh.
and how we met, but I'm so glad it did happen.
Yeah, now she's a member of our senior club.
I know, she's
And-
the one that brought me to the church.
Oh,
for
that's-
you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what Joanne hasn't told you is that she also does volunteers to do games for larger groups. And
Yeah.
we played Scrabble in teams.
Yeah.
My team came in second. I
Yes,
was
it did.
very disappointed,
It is a fun.
but it was so much fun, yeah.
Yeah.
So she was in your class.
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
in my class.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and I recently saw Tommy Alho's name on Facebook, and I found out he's in Florida in real estate. And I remember Tommy, John Boynton, and myself in second grade. Our teacher was Miss Danellis. And the three of us would sit in the front row. And every time she asked a math question, the three of us were trying to get so that we could all three of us say the answer and no one else in class would know. So we were competing, Tommy Alho, John Boynton, and I, for the, my math slowly went downhill as it got harder, but in second grade I was pretty good.
Oh, those are the memories, aren't they?
Yes. yes.
And do you, Mr. Boynton, do you know where he is?
No, I don't know where John Boynton is, and I just saw Tommy Alho and Easton Stories on Facebook. I saw that he posted something, and I said, "Oh, I know that name." And I went on his page to see what he was doing now. And Facebook is such a great tool to connect with.
Right. And did you make a friend
I
request?
didn't make contact, no.
Oh, you
'cause
have
it was
to.
just this week, and I've been dedicating all my time to Tom and Annette for trying to make them happy this week. So
And when they're visiting.
when they're visiting,
Yeah,
yes, but
yeah.
I'll have some more time when I get back.
Well,
to-
Facebook is great because you can actually put in names in the search bar.
Yes.
And yeah.
Yes, and meet people.
That's what happened to me some years back. I went to the University of Stockholm on scholarship in Sweden, and
Oh,
I had a
nice.
boyfriend.
Mhm.
And that boyfriend's son said, "Dad, why don't you just put her name in on Facebook?" And within a week he found me. So we met after 47 years.
Wow.
Wow.
I met his wife, and very coincidentally, her great grandfather came to Easton, and that was on his papers. The destination was Northeastern Mass, if you can believe that.
Wow.
And came with Anders Berglund, and he changed his name to Andrew, which Americanizing it, Andrew Berglund. And his son, Herbert, was our chief of police, and his son David, was in my class in school. So it's sometimes coincidences right there, and it's just amazing.
Sometimes things happen for reasons we don't understand.
Yes, right. I know.
And maybe we shouldn't understand.
So what was it? You obviously grew up with a love of music, because I just finished interviewing them for the Love of Words segment. And Tom plays the guitar, he writes original music, and Joanne plays not just the guitar, but the mandolin and the violin beautifully, and probably a few other instruments too. And so, but it started with your mother and playing the guitar, and your sister, and as you say, the 3 sharps and 1 flat. So that was a big influence in your life.
Very big influence. My mom and dad always sang, and my mom had this friend, Rosie Baker, and they would always harmonize. So I was always adding the 3rd part harmony in. I started playing on a bongo drum. That was when I was out playing, I played the snare drum. I didn't even play a ringed instrument. So it grew from there when my father could send my sister and I to Robert Fortunato Menga. He was an Italian man that lived in Mansfield. And my sister and I would go there every Sunday for 3 or 4 years. And learned the mandolin and the violin. And I can remember going and going up the steps to the second floor, and his wife on Sunday would always be making sauce. And every Sunday morning you'd go and try to concentrate on your lesson and be smelling that sauce the whole time. Till one day he said, "Would you like to stay for dinner?" And we said, yes. And we got to taste the sauce finally. And his son was the first violinist for the Philadelphia Philharmonic.
Wow.
And he had him come to the house, and he played The Flight of the Bumblebee on the violin. And it was the first time I had seen this amazing man stand in front of me playing The Flight of the Bumblebee on a violin. And I did try out for the youth concert for the Boston Youth Symphony Orchestra.
Oh, yes, yes.
And I didn't make it. And it did turn me off for a while. I was so discouraged. So I think it was a little early that I tried, and I didn't take it well. But I learned from that later on that you don't have to be a virtuoso to have music in your heart and be able to enjoy all the friends that you make through music. So.
And you can echo that sentiment, right, Tom?
Absolutely true. There's a lot of people in my life that I would not have come in contact with had it not been for music. I've had even surgeons and heart surgeons and doctors tell me the value of music and playing it, especially in the venues that I play, is so therapeutic for the patients in the nursing homes that it's better than any medicine he could ever prescribe.
But don't those same doctors tell you that you are also benefited by the music?
Absolutely.
Because I mean, you're relaxed, you're at peace, you're enjoying it, and so that's got to be good for your cardiovascular system.
Yeah, even the folks in the Alzheimer's units, that Alzheimer's it's caused by a breakdown of what you would call insulation around the nerves in your brain. And music is one of the few things that is not affected. The ability to respond to music and enjoy it just like you didn't have Alzheimer's. It's one of the few things. I can't tell you how many times I've played in front of an audience of people with Alzheimer's and other brain disorders that have never spoken. And you'll see their head come up and their lips will start moving and they'll be singing along to a song and the staff will come up to me afterwards and say, "I've never seen this person even lift their head." So it's proof positive that music is much more than just sound.
So when you were growing up, so you have some real rock bottom foundational values that you treasure. What were those values that you learned here in Easton growing up that influenced you in your later life and made an impact on you?
I worked a lot when I was growing up. Like I said, I worked full-time all the way through late junior high and high school. We grew up on a farm, so there was a lot of work involved there. It taught me to be a very responsible citizen, and most importantly, when you're throughout anything you do in life, you don't ever give up. You just keep on doing what you do. At the point that you give up, you might as well just give it all up.
So
taught me quite a lot about sticking to things and shaped who I am today.
Great. And with that goes all the hard work that you learn too. That never giving up and being persistent and determined. And I think that's a value that all of us growing up in Easton learned back in
Yeah.
those days.
Yeah.
And we were so independent, you know? We felt that we could do anything, and our parents gave us the permission to be on our own, be independent. We didn't have any helicopter parents who were, you know, hovering above us, trying to keep us from all the dangers that are lurking everywhere. So tell me, what were some of the things that you remember about your independent childhood?
We had a lot of land where we grew up, so I spent a lot of time out there in the woods by myself, learning how to survive. Not because it was something I had to do, it's because something I wanted to do. And it may have been just learning survival skills in the woods, but it instilled the survival instinct in me. I've always had no fear of things like I might lose my job tomorrow. What am I going to do? That's never a fear for me, because I know from what I've learned growing up, no matter what happens, I'm going to survive.
Great.
I'm a survivor. That's probably the single strongest quality that I derived from my childhood.
Growing up here in Easton.
Yep.
Yep. How about you, Joanne?
I have to say that the woods was a special place for me. And I also wrote a song when my father passed.
Oh.
It's on the other program, what is it, for words?
For the love
For
of
the Love
words.
of Words in July. You can hear the song there. But we did spend a lot of time in the woods. We didn't have a lot of money, so we learned to be creative, which is one of the things that got me through my education and also my engineering career, was to find a solution and use what you have again and again as a resource. My job as an engineer in this last company I worked with, which was Network Engines, which has changed names now, and I don't work there anymore, but I had to create a way to go from building 10 1U high servers for EMC a day to 200. And as a process engineer, I had to put all those things in place to make that happen. So as a child growing up, I had 3 brothers and sisters below me and above me. I was a middle child. So when the olders were working and doing other things, I was entertaining and keeping Tom and my sister Laurie and Kim happy. So I would have to create these games, like drawing cat and mouse in the driveway and putting rocks in there for cheese, and one person would be the cat. So what I had were rocks and sticks and dirt. So do something with that. And I think by making those connections in your brain to say, okay, what do I have? And now what do I need? And how can I use it to do this?
And all that came from your early days growing up in Easton.
Growing up in Easton, playing cat and mouse. And,
Let me interject a little
oh God,
bit.
he's gonna get mad at me now.
No. One of the creative things that she did for me and my older sister Kim, we became her employees on the farm.
Oh my, yes you did.
You know, we weren't just somebody else in the family taking care of the animals. She decided to run the farm as a business. So we became her employees, and she had a little office set up in the barn with little brown envelopes with time slots on there that we had to sign in and out every morning. And we'd get,
Because they get up late.
I think we'd get like 10, 20 cents a day in our brown envelope, and we wouldn't even get to touch the envelope until payday. And then we'd get
I
our
hadn't even
20,
been to
30
work
cents.
yet.
Yeah.
I was.
But it was
Yeah.
there was always always something creative going on. Joey was responsible a lot of times for feeding us dinner, and she'd come up with these recipes.
How many
One of the
ways
ones
can you
that
cook a hot dog?
one of the ones that sticks in my head was the pineapple toast.
Oh, yeah.
The toast with the cheese and the pineapple on top of it.
And you put it in the toaster oven.
But yeah.
And long before they put cheese in hot dogs, I took the squeezed cheese and put it in the hot dogs to make them different. Because the menu choices were a little limited because of the money constraints, but.
Joey and I actually started working for Codex Corporation just about the same time.
In Mansfield, yeah.
And I went the direction of going in the military, and she stayed with them. So if I had stayed, I probably would have followed pretty much the same.
You would have.
The same path that she did. But I learned my trade in the military, and it's
Which
gotten
was
me through.
electrician.
Electrical contractor.
Yeah.
Is what I retired as. Yeah.
Well, that's great. You know, so many of our generations growing up in Easton had to create our own fun and pleasure, and we didn't have cell phones or laptops or tablets, or we didn't have these games, things that kids do with, all that stuff. And so it did make us much more creative and willing to look outside the box, shall we say? And because we had to create and with what we had available.
When there is a need,
Right,
there is invention.
right.
We were the original television remote controls.
Really?
Get up and change the channel. Go change the channel. Thank God there was only 3 channels.
Yeah, those were the days.
Yeah.
Do you remember when telephone was 3 numbers?
Yes.
You do?
I don't remember. I remember hearing about it.
Okay.
But if I recall, when we were quite young, we were still on a party line with our grandmother,
Yes.
and we would have to
2
pick up.
rings. We had
Yeah.
the 2 rings.
And she had the one ring.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we'd have to pick up the phone and see if she was on there before we could make a phone call. And
Right. Well, I
and
remember
she
that
was
too.
always on there.
I still remember our phone number as a kid,
Yeah.
238-6814.
Yeah.
Okay, but that was the 2-3. Do you remember what that stood for?
Cedar.
Yes.
Yep. Cedar
Very
8.
good. Cedar.
Oh, yeah, Cedar, that's right. CE.
CE.
CE8, yeah.
Yeah, CE8. And I think that our phone number was 128. So it's long before the Cedar CE came in. And we were not on a party line. Not that I can remember. I don't think so, no. But 128, that's amazing. I remember that. Yeah. So those values are still obviously operating in your lives today, because your musicality is outstanding, and your ability, it's just beautiful and wonderful. And those of you should check it out on
For the love of words.
For the Love of Words. I was just
remember
forgetting
this
my
time.
words.
You remembered for me the first time. I remember
Yeah.
you said that.
Okay, so that's the only problem we have as we get a little bit older. We tend to get forgetful of some things, but we do remember all those early memories. They're so clear and vivid, aren't they?
Yes.
It's amazing how a song or a particular event or something can trigger. I was just listening today to a Mark Denning song, and my mother, every Sunday afternoon, it was play records. And that particular album, any song on that album, as soon as I hear it, I'm back in the living room with my mother on Sunday afternoon listening to records.
But that's a wonderful memory.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and a wonderful trigger. I mean, that's incredible. Yeah. So, and you got your gift of music from your mother.
And my dad,
and
too.
your dad, too?
He just didn't play out. He was more withdrawn. He would play at home for a while, but it was mostly my mother, yes.
Yeah, great. Well, anything else you want to talk about? Did you remember about growing up in Easton? I mean, you certainly have shared with us what many of my other guests have also shared, which is the creativity, the independence, the self-assurance and independence that one gains to go out into the world and not to be afraid of anything and not to be discouraged, but to be persistent and never give up.
Yes.
And I'm sure that you have passed that trait on to your children.
Yes. My children, I have a daughter in Connecticut and a son in New Hampshire, and 6 grandchildren. And my daughter is much like myself, and my son, both of them as well. But my husband has passed on 2 years ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So it's a little tough without him, but
Sure.
without him, he brought me through a lot as well. I was very naive as a young married woman, and he was able to teach me so much.
You have so much to be grateful for.
So much to be grateful for, is to find someone that you love. For 46 years we were married.
Wow.
So
Good for
very
you.
special time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both. And enjoy your sojourn here in Easton. And please come back again.
Oh, we'll be back.
Yes.
Thank you, Priscilla. This was great to be able to acknowledge everything and have a record of it. And Kim Pincus is awesome back there too.
She's our
She's been
technician.
able to accommodate us at a very short notice, and it's so
Right.
appreciated.
Yeah, and she's our director extraordinaire.
Yes.
Yes. So thank you again, Tom Sharpe
Yes, ma'am.
and Joanne
Thank you,
Sharpe
Priscilla.
Sheehan. And this is Priscilla Almquist Olson saying farewell for today. Until next time, stay well, and I hope that you enjoyed this very interesting and entertaining program. Until next time.